Hi everybody, my name is Larry King.
And I'm Corey Greeneltch.
And we are with Ironworks Consulting out of the DC Tyson's Corner office. And today we're going to be talking about web applications and mobile applications for cell phones and mobile devices. And we're going to kind of talk about the differences between native applications and web applications, kind of what the current state of web applications today, and what the future might hold for them. So, Corey, let's talk a little bit about the difference between a web application and a native application on a mobile device.
Well, there's a pretty big difference between the two, and it's something that we're having a lot of conversations about with our clients and internally as well. It's something that you do have to be very careful about using the right language around, because there's just, as far as development goes, you could definitely walk down the wrong path quickly. What we're seeing a lot of now is native apps. And so what defines a native app is something that, for example, you are going to download from the iTunes store to your iPhone. It's a native software application. It only works on your iPhone. It's written in Objective-C. It's device-specific content in that, and that is a native app. The other type of thing we're going to be talking about are web apps. And web apps, like they sound, are applications that are based on the internet. So while you may be able to pull some basic source files down to your device, really the code base exists on the web. It's open, it's accessible, it's not device dependent at all. So that's kind of the big difference, is where that software lives, whether it's on your device or on the internet.
So what are some of the advantages of using a web application versus a native application? It seems like one of the obvious ones would be a web application is something you could write for once and be across a bunch of different devices, whereas a native application is you would have to write for a bunch of different platforms.
Right. That's a big part of it. Just by definition, the giant pro of the web app is that it's not device specific. You can reuse that content. It's open. It's accessible. So why would everybody not be using that right now? The big kicker that it comes down to is native applications are able to utilize a lot of the different features of the phone. So you talk about the access to the accelerometer, access to the gyroscope in the iPhone 4. Basically all the different innate features of your device. There's not a really great way for web apps to access that content on all these different devices. So right now, we're seeing a lot more action towards towards native applications, even though they have these limitations of being device specific, being kind of locked into what they are. The future is hopefully pointing towards web apps. We'll talk about that. But as far as gaming goes, the ability to actually quickly access the processor of your phone, I think that's the big difference between the two.
Let's talk about that. I mean, when people think of web applications today, the first thing they think of is the Apple App Store. They think they have around 250,000 apps on their store right now. You have the Google Android store, which is over 100,000 apps now. Even BlackBerry has an app store. Even Nokia, a phone that we don't commonly use in the United States, but is like one of the most widely used around the world, has an app store now. So when people think of apps and on a mobile device, they're thinking native apps most of the time. So it's important to make that distinction, like you just talked about. But It almost seems like we're kind of in an application bubble or an app store bubble right now. I think Steve Jobs announced that they had $1 billion in sales, actually $1 billion in dollars paid out to developers sometime in the spring. And if you look at that, it seems like you break that down. That's between 225,000 apps. That's only like $4,000 per application. So a very small number of developers are actually making a lot of money, and there's a lot of people making hardly any money. Apple's not really making any money on it. It's only about 1% of their total sales. I think they're only really just covering the cost that it takes to actually maintain the App Store. I mean, they're really in the game to sell hardware where they have their higher margins, but they love their App Store because it's really driving people towards it. So if Apple's not making any money and only a small number of developers are making any money, it seems like we're kind of in a bubble situation. If I look at my own personal application usage on my iPhone, I have about 130 apps. I mean, it seems like a lot. It's probably more than the normal person, but I like to go in and see, what some of these applications do. The other day, I sat down, I tried to count out the applications that I actually use on a regular basis, and the number was 16. So, but between all this money that nobody's really making and the number of apps that people actually use, it seems like we're really kind of in a bubble situation now. And I don't really know how that, this app store model can really be sustained. Which brings me to the point, in the future, are we going to have an app store and web applications? And what do you think is going to be the dominant platform in the future for mobile devices?
I mean, we've got our definite preferences, and you've talked a lot about the differences between them. Right now, it's hard to imagine a future that doesn't have some sort of app native application, just because of the way it interfaces with the device. To really get the most out of the device right now, where we are is it has to be written for that device in Objective-C, particularly. Hopefully, in the future, we're not. How much longer are we going to be using phones? How much longer are we going to be tied to these specific devices? We talk about device agnostic content, and that really being our future, and that leads to the future being really rooted in web apps, really rooted in the browser and the mobile browser, being able to interpret HTML5, CSS. Having a little bit more advancements around hopefully tying those things in the spec, maybe tying those into loopbacks that the devices can then talk to, so our mobile browser gets more and more powerful. Our mobile browser can tap into these different functionalities, and we're not writing individual applications for individual devices. So we're not going to write a device for the iPhone. We're not going to write a device for the Android operating system. We're not going to write an application for your toaster, for your car, for all of these future devices, because the computers are going to be everywhere. Every single interface point, you're going to have apps and computers, and these things all need to talk to each other. So much like I guess back in the early 90s, I draw a lot of comparisons between where we are right now to kind of the pre-web standards movement back when we let Microsoft kind of run the internet. With Internet Explorer being the flagship browser of the 90s, kind of put a lot of trust in their hands. A lot of code was written that was not really standards compliant. Internet Explorer had its own. We spent a lot of time building websites that work in Internet Explorer, a lot of time and a lot of money. I think in the early 2000s, the web standards movement came along and said, okay, hey, we're gonna develop standards for this code, and we're gonna make sure that browsers are more efficient. All of our developments are more efficient. We're able to kind of just open this up and really lay down some standards around these things, so we can not be so wasteful. Hopefully, we can follow kind of a similar model with application development. So instead of writing all these individual applications, we can really utilize an open framework, make our development a lot more efficient, and that's the kind of future I'd love to see.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember back in the day when everybody was developing their websites for, Netscape and IE and whatever other browsers were out there, and just having just the code mess that used to be, and it's really kind of heading that same way with Android platform and the web OS and Apple and BlackBerry. It's really kind of looking like that again, and it just seems like down the road it's gonna all come together, and web standards hopefully will win the day at the end.
A lot of it, I mean, you think about all there's 130 apps that you have on your phone, and in 2 years, in 5 years, definitely in 10 years, how useful is that money that you spend on those applications going to be? Is that really a good investment? That's a lot of money. Well, I didn't pay for all of them. Some of them are free apps, obviously. I mean, still, it's
I'm not Daddy Warbucks here.
It's money that went in, and in 5 years, those are going to be your 8-tracks, man. Those things are going to be completely useless, and you're not going to have an iPhone anymore. You're gonna, you'll be using your space toaster. So,
can't wait to get my all my web content on my space toaster. That'll be awesome.
RSS toast. That's good stuff.
All right. Well, thank you for watching. Again, my name's Larry King.
I'm Corey Greeneltch.
And we're with Ironworks Consulting, and we hope to see you on our next webcast. Thank you.
Thank you.